Hello, everyone. This is Cyber Power of Tigray. Welcome. I have two young ladies that we will be discussing about the crisis in Tigray region of Ethiopia. We also will be discussing with them about the upcoming protest this coming Friday, January 8th. We are planning to have it worldwide. With that being said, Cyber Power of Tigray has started an English program to cater for the majority of diaspora who grew up in this country and could potentially understand some of the Tigrinya, but not entirely understand and speak it. So we're also expanding our audience for those who follow Cyber Power of Tigray worldwide. So we're gonna have a lot of discussion, but before we go, I am gonna let Fidela and Tiana introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Fidela. Tell us your name and if you want to mention your state or city, whatever you want, and you're obviously your student. And so if you can briefly tell us. I'm the host, Mike Cassahun, obviously. You all have seen me. If you're a new person, welcome to the program. Fidela, please introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Hi, everybody. My name's Fidela Casa. I'm 22 years old. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I was born here. Like I said, I'm diaspora, but my roots are in Mekelle and in Shire, and I'm just here trying to spread awareness and just give my, just the Muslim youth perspective on what's going on. I'll pass it over to Tiana.
Hello, my name is Tiana Gutierrez. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Portland, Oregon. I was born and raised here. My roots are actually Oxum in Mekelle as well.
Thank you, guys. Well, so I know that I had the opportunity to meet Fidel last time. I know, Tiana, you were there too. I didn't get a chance to meet you in person and chat with you, but looking forward to joining you guys. Well, Tiana, obviously, you'll be at the Portland protest, and Fidel, you'll be at the Seattle protest. What inspired you guys to be the voice for the voiceless in Tigray? And given what's happening, a lot of young people, I've never seen them this inspired to come out and protest against genocide on innocent civilian in Tigray. So if you can kind of talk about, your motivations and what you've been doing, then we'll talk about the targets of civilians and churches and mosques. And I appreciate, by the way, to the audience, one of the things that that coincided is that I didn't know what Tiana's faith was until actually earlier today, but during a conversation, like, oh yeah, I let her know that Fidel is a Muslim, and she was very passionate in Portland when her uncle spoke in Tigrinya. She was able to express that in English, and I was very moved on how you presented it, how the Muslim minority feels in Tigray, what the Ethiopian dictator and the Eritrean mercenaries are doing to our people, which is one of the reasons why I want you to come out and speak. But before I linger this, tell us about your motivation. What made you to come out and to do the things that you guys are doing? I'll start with Tiana, and then I'll have Fidela go follow after that.
It's what made me want to start advocating and everything is like you realize you have family there that are in cities that aren't only Mekelle, and they can't talk to you. You realize that like you can't communicate with them and everything. There are troops invading their homes, stealing their things, and just you can't talk to them. So like it makes you, want to speak up for them since no one else is doing it.
And like, there we go. We got it. We lost you for a second there. You back. So we were just talking about what is getting you motivated and why you're obviously doing this. So Tiana just actually finished up right when you popped up. So if you don't mind, Fidel, sorry about the connection, something happened, but if you want to kind of jump right in, it showed up perfect timing.
Hi, sorry, seems like I'm having some connectivity issues. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, looks like I'm back on. Sorry about that. Can you repeat your question, please?
Sure. So my question was, obviously, why is the young generation that is motivated to speak up, to stand up for the injustice that's happening back home? What impact is it having on you, on your family, and what is it? Why are you doing it?
I think the Tagalog people as a whole have a strength within us that, no matter where you are in the world, we all will always feel connected to our homeland. Even my nephews my nephews and nieces and like people who have never even touched foot on the soil back home can see the effect that it's having on our aunts and our uncles and our parents and our grandparents and all of the people around us who aren't able to talk to their family. And even if we don't feel it ourselves, we feel it through the people around us. So we know it's really sensitive for everybody, no matter where you are in the world. And on top of that, personally, I've always been active in the social justice community. Anytime there's any type of injustice, I've always been vocal about it from a very young age. But this really struck home with me. The first day that communication was blocked out, my entire family, of course, like everybody else, was really worried. We really weren't sure what to expect, but we were hopeful. And as time went on, we all, the worry continued to grow. And I think as that happened, everybody in the community just started to unite together just for moral support. And then once the lines of communication were open and our fears were confirmed and we saw exactly what was going on, we heard of the massacres, everybody who had family who were affected, they had to deal with that. And that's when I feel like our worry turned into anger. More than anything. And that's when we started to really mobilize. And I'm so proud of all of the different communities, especially here in Seattle. The way they came together amazed me. They started to form protests, the way we came together to make signs, the way we mobilized on Twitter, the social media aspect of it as well, just blew my mind. And I think it really is because, we're very passionate people, we're strong people, and we're hurt. This injustice is, by far one of the worst that's ever happened in any type of history. It's another Rwanda, it's another Holocaust, and it's happening to our own people. And of course, when it's your own people, you're more affected by it than anybody else would. And we know and we recognize that. And we know that if anybody's going to speak out about this and bring awareness to us, it's our own people. Nobody's going to care more than us. And I think we've taken that responsibility and we've ran with it. I was at the first protest in Seattle. I wasn't really, active in the community. Growing up, I just didn't have the opportunity. I didn't really know much about the community. But I was at the first protest and I noticed that they had a couple of people who were leading the protest who were getting very tired because they were really working hard. So I just decided to support them and, just grab the mic and help lead the chants and, just give some moral support to the people who are out there. And from there, the community was super supportive. They noticed that, I was somebody who cared and they took that and they ran with it. And since then, I've just been trying to be more engaged with the community and bring a lot of awareness to this. I've noticed that the biggest things we've been doing is, the social media outreach of it. And we've just, the community has come together in such a way. We've developed new types of organizations, and the organizations who were there before working together with the youth now. The youth especially have come together in a way I haven't seen before. There are group chats everywhere. People are talking about it. More than we've ever really connected before. So I'm really proud of us, and I really hope that this continues. And hopefully, we have seen the benefits of all of our work, and I just hope it continues to grow.
And you spoke like passionately when I think it was your uncle. When I saw you in Portland, you guys drove all the way down from Seattle last Monday. Which I did the same thing, by the way. I was visiting my family in Seattle for the Christmas weekend, and then I decided to make that 3+ hour trip because Oregon is my home. But when I saw you guys, I'm so grateful, actually, for those of you from Portland, and for the folks in Seattle that are coming to help support the Portland folks. And I think that I've never seen this much of unity in my lifetime. Obviously, I'm a lot older than you guys, but I coming to this country as a child refugee. It's heartbreaking, and I've said in this show over and over, obviously. But what I am really inspired is when I see the unity, no matter what age. Actually, we normally don't have this very many young people engaged in political movement, but this actually, I know people think it's more of political, which back at home it is, but right now this actually is outside the political norm. This is about massacre. This is about crisis that's taken place. That being said, um, I'm gonna give each one of you an opportunity to, kind of share your, what you're hearing, what you have, what it's been like for you guys to go through from abroad, not having access to your loved ones back home, and how your parents are handling this. I do want us to avoid specifically calling out like communities back home locations, because sadly, that has been a method being used by the dictator and by the Eritreans to actually trace back to roots of family members who are speaking democratically. So we live in a society where we have our First Amendment right to free speech, but we are also speaking on two dictators that the only people that we know through reading history, anything like them, has been Hitler. So with that being said, just bear in mind that referencing names or locations could also be used as a target. But with that in mind, Tiana, how is your family handling, like, the fact that we have not been able to hear from our family members, 62 days, I believe now, over 2 months, obviously, let's put it that way.
They have been anxious, like always checking Facebook, media, always watching videos of like, I don't know, war videos. They've just been like anxious and just very weary about everything. I have been too, just knowing this, but yeah, just a lot of anxiousness.
And so, like, and what are they, like, what you guys are doing to like overcome with a lot of this stuff? Like, what are the challenges, and how are you balancing like you guys, like, daily life? And I know you guys, you particularly are going to start school tomorrow, I believe, is Oregon, where after the winter break. How is that affecting you and your family?
Sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Sure. So like, how are you like balancing, like, so like, the anxiousness you talked about, but also we know that many of us, we know when the war is over, we will probably won't be able to see most of our family members. How are they processing knowing that fact, and their stress level goes up and down? But, the anxiety is like, I think, it's obvious, but beyond the anxiety, being excited, like the excitement, what, like how are you guys, like, holding up? How are you guys, like, supporting one another when one is down, the other could be stepping in? Like, what are the mechanisms that you guys normally are using among each other?
Just reminding them to like limit their time on Facebook. They might see something really bad on there, like really graphic videos on Facebook that they would start panicking seeing, or just misinformation that they might want to engage in. It's just like a lot of reminders and like checking in and everything. And balance, I just make sure I don't use my phone as often. Like it's like really hard, but I just make sure I don't use my phone or go on a lot of media and everything. But yeah.
So recently, we've seen obviously the target, the civilian death, has been nonstop, but lately the target has been historical churches and mosques attack now in Tigray. This dictator and the Eritrean mercenaries, who are not supported by the Eritrean people, so that people understand, our listeners, how, I mean, how does that justify you watching what we're watching? I understand we try to minimize the negative things out on social media, that it doesn't mean that we're not engaging on social media, by the way. So to clarify what Tiana said, I think she's referring to the negativity on social media. But in fact, a couple of days ago, we had a nonstop 24-hour tweeting that we were massively on Twitter and making people aware, not just among our communities, but around the world. So I just want to re-clarify on what she meant by minimizing the use of social media. I think she's talking about specifically about the negative images that we have seen, the horrors that we have seen, that is, traumatizing, Tagara communities around the world. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
If not, you can correct me. But so I want us to jump on the historical sites that recently a mosque has been bombed. Churches have been bombed, and yet they're denying every time they kill people, young girls and women are raped. It's even the media that he controls, which nearly every Ethiopian media is now controlled under Abiy Ahmed. So if there's no access for independent journalism to go in, but yet one way or another, the truth is being out. They refuse to acknowledge Eritreans are involved. They have been, we know, and a lot of these these damages that are happening, the looting and the targets on civilian, actually has now shifted. The majority is being done by Eritrean army. So I want to make sure that the people know what's happening. While the Eritrean community does not support it, the Eritrean mercenaries are specifically targeted at the early stages. It was the majority by the Amhara militia. And of course, the federal troops were no savior either. But now you have the mosque being targeted. We have the church being targeted. Like, from religious perspective, how does that make you feel? Fidel, like, I'm going to throw the question at you, and then I'll let Tiana jump in too.
Well, it frustrates me on a human level, and it obviously frustrates me on a religious level, because Ethiopia has deep roots in both Christianity and in Islam. It's a very, very religious country. Everybody there has really, whatever faith they believe in it really, really strongly. So for us to turn around and, turn in our fellow, Tagadu civilians into the authorities, and then to turn our backs on the people in our own country, just to hold political power, frustrates me, because it goes against every single one of our religious teachings. Both Islam and Christianity would never ever endorse this type of behavior. And for our people to go ahead and support that, I know we saw the footage of people in the streets celebrating when the prime minister, the dictator, honestly, declared victory. And that really hurt me, because I was expected a certain level of support from my people, the Muslim and Christian Ethiopians as a whole, and that hasn't been the case. There's been a lot of silence, and that frustrates me, because silence is violence. When you're not speaking out and you're being silent, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. And that's kind of been the overwhelming majority of the community. Despite that, we've gotten a lot of support from Eritreans and Ethiopians, even Amharas, everybody, Oromos, the whole, there's definitely people in our community from other ethnic groups that have shown support, and I do appreciate them a lot. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for the majority. Which again is frustrating, because that's not what our religion teaches us. The government, like you said, has now bombed Nagashi. We've known this for some time now, but critics denied that. They wanted proof, and now the proof is here. The pictures are out. The sacred tombs of Nagashi himself, as well as the Sahabas, the companions of the Prophet, have been desecrated. There's holes in the mosque's walls, and that really hurt me, because just in 2017, 3 years ago, I was at Nagashi with my grandfather, and we went to Nagashi and we prayed there. And my grandfather is very prominent in the community, and he gave a speech, and he, was very proud to show, his grandkids our lineage and our history, and the smile on his face. I have the picture; it warms my heart. The pride he felt that day, because our great grandfather is also buried there. He was part of one of the 5 people who actually turned Nagashi into a mosque. So, built the mosque at Nagashi, I should say. And that so that our lineage, especially like my family, has deep roots there. So to see that my lineage is being destroyed, my culture is being destroyed, really hurts me. And it affects me on a personal level. It also affects me on a systemic level. Nagashi is the historical context to it is, baffling. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Ethiopia, it was to escape persecution. So to see persecution happening there now, it's just frustrating. And to see the Muslim world, our ummah as a whole, largely being silent about it, they should be enraged. This has been, Nagashi is dubbed as a second Mecca. Like I said, the companions are buried there. There's over 160 other of our ummah, including the Prophet's daughter, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's daughter, is also buried there. And Nagashi himself was such a kind-hearted man. He gave refuge to the Prophet and his companions and our ummah when we needed it the most. And when he was bribed and when they tried to, have him turn over the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions and his people back to Mecca, he refused. And he told the people that they were safe here. And it's that same safety and security that we had ever since. And now it's like we've been taken back hundreds of years. And not only are we taken back, but everything that there's scripture, there's artifacts, there's things that were taken that we're never going to be able to get back. And that's what hurts me the most. Turkey has spent a lot of money into building that mosque. They were in the process of renovating it, and it was specifically targeted to take us back. And they knew what they were doing. This isn't collateral damage. That mosque was targeted the same way civilians are targeted. And that's what frustrates me the most is there's this ideology that this is a war, like a political situation, and it's a war with a certain entity, but that's not the case. This is a war with the Tagaru people. It's a war with the, everything that we are, everything we believe in, and our history, our nationality as a whole. They want to wipe us out. They want to wipe out our history, but this isn't just Tagaru history. This is Ethiopian history. It's Islamic history. It's Christian history. It's human history. And it's a humanitarian issue, as you said, and that's what really is starting to frustrate me is the fact that people are still denying it when the pictures are out there. And I don't know how else to get this through to some people. Said this is serious. The reason why people are so advocate, the reason we're so passionate, the reason we're so angry is because it's serious. In a couple of months, when people are saying, "Oh wow, we didn't know what was going on," you can't say that because we're here and we're telling you this is literally another Rwanda in the making. It's a genocide of the Tagaru people. And if you don't act now, it's only going to get worse.
I think you said it all. My only struggle in one area, one thing you mentioned about the history behind it being Ethiopian history, is that sadly, Ethiopians, particularly in Amhara, I'm enraged, so that's why I try to keep myself together. But I was not deeply involved in a lot of things to see people this negative. So when you see this hat, it used to be like sort of like for me, hanging in my room as a reminder of my ancestors, my origin of Tigray. So I often, to keep it clean and nice, I kept it hanging for, I wanted to say, a little over 25 years now. I start, swinging it out, and I start wearing actually in every show ever since. So my point is, you're right. The churches and the mosques were, I'm using the past 10, Ethiopian historical sites, including when the Amharas would brag how history was made in Adwa, defeating the Italians and so forth. The issue I have there is I can no longer openly and publicly really say, well, even privately for that matter, say that the things that's happening in Tigray, the lootings and the intentionally destroying historical sites that they know there's nobody besides civilians who are worshiping, I can no longer say Ethiopian history has been destroyed. Tigray history, Tagaru history, as you well stated, ethnically, but also these mosques and the churches that are being destroyed, is to demoralize and destroy the history of Tigray. Simply, I think there's rage and jealousy that history has Tigray has a rich history from both the Christianity, of course, and when Muslims escaped execution, they were like embraced and brought in. And guess what? Tigray is a place that has been open to anybody and everybody, and welcome anyone that believes in human rights and peace and justice and equality, which is what we enjoy in this country. What we've seen, I think, there's no way to describe besides we've got evil men that has been thirsty to simply wipe out an entire ethnic of 6.5 million. I don't know the exact number. Nobody really knows the exact number. I've heard the population in Tigray is as high as 9 million. But regardless of the number, we do have 2.3 million children in needs of immediate humanitarian assistance. But I'm going to give Tiana an opportunity if, what her thoughts are, what's happening, what we're talking about, the mosque and the church, and how is that impacting, the communities in Tigray and the communities in the diaspora. And you guys as young people, what, you're doing, obviously, it's admirable. If you want to add, something to that, Tiana, I'm going to give you an opportunity, and then, we can shift into other topics that I want us to talk about.
I feel like they purposely, or the government purposely did this. Like, they knew we would be enraged by this. They knew it was a historical mosque. They knew how mad we would be about the situation. They knew what they were getting into. They just want to erase us and our history, slowly doing it. But no one's getting involved, unfortunately.
Why is the world slow at reacting? What happened to humanity? Forget about the politics of it. Why is the international community silent? I know there are people that are speaking out against this, but why is there not an action taken for over 60 days while people are starving, while people are dying, while there's a genocide, a clear genocide? What's going on?
It's an African country. That's why they're so used to hearing wars happening in Africa that they don't want to involve. They think it's an everyday thing. They just don't want to involve themselves in African, trouble, which is annoying and stupid. The UN still hasn't gotten involved with it. They're tweeting about it. That's not enough. You tweeting isn't anything to us.
So what could we do from our point of view as a diaspora to push and pressure the international community to act now? Because every day that goes by is every day we're losing lives. People are dying, and I think they're taking it as a normal thing when really civilians are being massacred. Fidel, I don't know if you heard that, but we're talking about the international community is being silent. And she mentioned about, being an African country, obviously, but when you have a humanitarian crisis like this, we're obviously we're organizing protests. There's a lot of things that we're doing from our point of view, but I feel like it's coming way too slow, and the response that we're getting, while it's positive, we feel like, I feel frustrated. I feel angry. I feel like hopeless and helpless at times, but I still cannot quit because of that. What do you think, by us organizing protests and bringing this awareness, what goal do you think that we are eventually going to achieve?
I think, the international community has a long-standing history of staying silent in the face of injustice and in the face of genocide. Historically, that was the case with Rwanda, and Tigray is not the only massacre that's going on in the world right now. There are concentration camps being built in China that are housing, more that they have I think it was like 9 million, I want to say, don't quote me on that, Muslims who are in concentration camps in China as we speak. So this the lack of action is unfortunately just because the international community doesn't feel like they have a stake in the war. The countries that have gotten involved, Sudan and Egypt, they have ties with Ethiopia, which is why they feel like they've taken more action than any other country has. But my message to the international community is, even though if you don't have direct ties with Ethiopia, if this war continues, you're going to have refugees pouring into every corner of the world. The Western world is going to be flooded with people, just like it was back in '98, just like it was when the Dirk war happened with Dirk. It's the Ethiopia it is a poor country at the end of the day. So, we rely on humanitarian aid as a whole, and to have humanitarian aid cut off, we had the locusts that we were dealing with, and then now we are in a civil war. And it's already taken a heavy toll on us. And if there isn't intervention soon, it's going to continue to get worse. And this will not be the beginning of it. We obviously had struggles in the past, and the international community has stepped up. There was like the We Are the World movement that happened, and that's the kind of energy we need again. And I think we can get it if we continue to use our voice and continue to mobilize. I think there is humanity left in the world. We saw with the Black Lives Matter movement what can happen when everybody cares, when everybody is vocal, when everybody unites as a community. But it is our responsibility as Tagaru to let them know. And on that note, we need to make sure we're very, very aggressive in our approach. When we're on social media, we need to be very clear with the words we're using. We're not here to incite violence. We're not here for more, division or anything of that sort. We can make it clear that we're not part of Ethiopia anymore, because like you said, there's no way that we're going to be able to go back to a peaceful living situation after what has happened. We can't forgive and forget. Too much has happened, and we're not part of Ethiopia anymore. And we can be very clear in that, but we also need to be very clear that there are Ethiopians living in the Tigray region. There are Eritreans living in the Tigray region, and we are here for the support of the region as a whole. There are reports of there are Christian farmers. I remember there was a story of a Christian farmer who almost starved to death in the fields, but was saved by his fellow. He was a Muslim man, and the Christian people in the community are what saved him. So this isn't. There is the divide needs to end. This needs to be about being a united front and mobilizing on social media and using every resource you have available to you efficiently, and reaching out to other communities. Especially if you have a friend who's really good at making videos, reach out to them and see if they are able to make a video. If you have somebody who's really good at painting, reach out to them and see if they want to do a mural or something of some sort. Get other communities involved, and then they will share their work on their platforms and with other communities, and that is how the word spreads. Talking to our own people is great, but the biggest key is going to be reaching out to other communities. If there's a page that focuses on African growth or something like that, message that African page on Instagram and say, this is what's going on in Tigray. Please use your platform to talk about it, and then kind of hold them accountable and let them know that, this is a really serious situation and we need your help. And if you don't speak on this, there's going to be a detrimental consequence. And I want you to be on the right side of history, almost maybe blame them and kind of try to make them feel a little guilty for not speaking out about it. Do whatever you can to make sure that, take care of yourself in the process. Don't overwhelm yourself, but please be aggressive, because if we're not passionate about it, nobody else is going to be.
With that note, I think you said it so brilliantly, Tiana. So I believe you go back to school tomorrow, and I know that most students are doing remote school. What Fidel is talking about, your task between now and Friday is, how are you passing on your messages, and what are you sharing with your classmates and friends out there, so that hopefully we can get a good turnout in the protest that is going to be held on January 8th, hopefully in cities across the world.
I've already emailed my history teacher if I can make an announcement in her class about what's happening. And so far what I've been doing is just mass tweeting a lot of things, making sure like all the hashtags are in there so it can possibly become trending again. Yeah, I've just been reading articles, watching videos about what's happening, live videos, like sending or DMing Black Lives Matter accounts, or just African accounts, and Tigray accounts, like, you know, to repost protests, and I'm just reposting things. Like, I feel like I'm doing too little, but like I'm just reposting things and doing as much as I can think of.
Tiana, I just want to say there is no such thing as too little. Even if you have no followers on Twitter, simply just tweeting Tigray genocide over and over and over again and getting it on the trending page again is so much, you know? So I know we all feel like that. We all feel like it's never enough, especially when we know our family back home are literally, you know, being targeted just for existing, and they're going through so much more than we are. So it's never going to feel like enough. But I do want to reassure our viewers out there, nothing is too little. Anything you tweet, anything you can say, every conversation you have, you know, even if you're walking down the street with a Tigray flag and somebody asks you, what's that? Take as much time as you can out of that person's today to describe in great detail what's going on. That in and of itself, those conversations is really what's going to make a change, because you don't know who that person is going to talk to next. So just keep that in mind, guys. Really, I know it, like she said, it feels like it's not enough, but I promise you we're doing everything we can. Don't overwhelm yourselves, but also at the same time, don't feel like there's such thing as too little.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, and I mean, thank you. You said it so well. Obviously, everything that we do is about making sure that people who never even heard the word Tigray can't even pronounce Tigray correctly. By the way, you guys may know this or may not, but you also know that most Amharics cannot actually correctly pronounce Tigray, which is pretty sad. Like, I mean, seriously, I was disgusted when I watched a community in Washington, D.C. Opening up champagne and celebrating while the Maikadra massacre just took place. Literally, I mean, there was like a splash of champagne, Amharic music like blasting, and I was disgusted. And a few good people that I have had in the show and outside the show reminded me that we don't have to respond violent with violent or negative with negative, which is hard to do, obviously, but it helped me to rethink, obviously. And so what Fidela just said earlier, we're not here to preach hate, division. We want people to come together. When I say people who have human hearts. I'm not talking about people with cold hearts. So when you tweet, when you message Facebook, when you reach out to your teachers asking for their approval to message your friends in the classroom or announce it, that's huge. So keep doing what you're doing, obviously. You know, as we see the unfold so far, we talked about the mosque, obviously. There's been other churches in other area where there was 150 civilians and the priests were killed. A couple days ago, the narrative by the dictator Abiy Ahmed's line in chief, meaning a spokesperson within the military, they can't speak like 10% of the truth. 95 to 99% of what comes out of their mouth is nothing but lies. Had the audacity to say, well, now we really have to be careful in finding them, because their new tactic and challenge now, they claim, is that the leaders of Tigray have grown their beard and they have blended in with the farmers. You know, I mean, that was literally an Amharic. So I do understand Amharic. So I happen, you know, I have some good friends that send me a private message, which you could talk about DM, and they, you know, I get a lot of links for people, you know, bless, you know, their heart. Really, that helped me out to stay, you know, a lot of areas that I don't always catch everything. But just watching that clip, I was so disgusted, because are you, I mean, really that delusional, that dumb to even come out? And he came out and say that to clarify to the country was his announcement. Say that we just wanted to clarify there has been some confusion, because what they allege was that they have arrested the leaders of Tigray, what they did was they actually arrested those who actually have nothing to do in the fighting, who actually were retired military vets who served proudly in the Ethiopian armed forces, people that were, no longer, active in any military, simply were rounded up. And he had the audacity to come out, actually say that they killed them all. I mean, these are like really, I mean, and he named the retired generals that were arrested and murdered, executed, obviously. And then when people start feeling outraged, the narrative shifted and they say, well, actually, because people start questioning, like, where are the leaders? Show us the ones that you say you arrested. And then you say, well, we killed them. Like, well, who did he kill? Like, well, he made a list. None of them were the leaders of the Tigray army and the Tigray elected officials. Then he came out, he sent out his line in chief saying, well, they're now merged in with the farmers because they've grown their mustache and beard, and you can't really separate them. So that's a kind of lie, the propaganda, the newest propaganda line. But it's also because I think some of the Muslim community around the world are also showing their rage on the mosque. So they're trying to shift the narrative, and they're trying to use that to say, well, we were going after them because they might have been. What it's like, come on, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, so this is the kind of thing that a dictator is actually out saying. And I mean, Fidel, you mentioned you were like there 3 years ago. I don't think we have any confusion between Christianity and Muslim and Tigray. I don't think there's, I mean, any, tensions for that matter, as long as that I know, as long as that I've been around. I've traveled to Ethiopia and of course to Tigray. I mean, many, many times. And every time I landed to Tigray, I mean, that's just when I just feel like, gosh, talk about safety and security. But now they're using this delusional narrative. Like, I'm just wondering, what are we going to imagine the next lie that they're going to come up with? And how, I mean, how sickening is this? And how are the diasporas? And I think in Seattle, you mentioned the communities from other tribes in Ethiopia are coming out, which is, really incredible. And I'm pleased to hear that, because I'm yet to come. I mean, I have had Eritrean calling me and talking about the protests in Portland, in Seattle. I've just met some new ones saying, hey, they saw this hat and the flag in Tigray. I've had a couple Eritreans actually say, hey, we feel that your pain. We're with you. We don't agree with the looting and everything that's happening in Tigray, and we want to stay in touch with you, whatever we can. And we exchange numbers. But you know what happened to all my Amhara friends that supposed to be my friends, whether it be on Facebook or in real life? They say that Ethiopia is fighting against the TPLF is what they're saying. Little do they know, they're messing with one of us, they're messing with all of us. So despite the crisis that we're talking about, this war was unwarranted. No one in Tigray wanted to go to war. Nobody declared war on Ethiopia from Tigray. In fact, the 500,000+ troops that came from all corner of northern Tigray, or from Eritrea and from the federal troops and the Amhara militia, I mean, they were really convinced that they were going to just grab the land and kill the leadership and terrorize and terrify the citizens and just capture. So what politically, I don't expect, all of us to be fully like knowledgeable what's happening, but just when you think about it, how is it that a state that doesn't have a lot of military resources, that its own citizens have been serving and the federal troops. I mean, what does it tell you about the strength of the Tigray people to withstand heavily militarized Eritrean armies, federal troops, Amhara militia coming in with tanks, fighter jets, drones by Emirates? We say in Emirates because we wanted people to know the United Arab Emirates involved, and when we use acronyms like AAU, people have no idea what we're talking about. So I think the new trending, like things that we are acknowledging and telling people, is that we're using the word Emirates actually. So for the record and for the audience and for our tweeting purposes and for the world to know, for the United Arab Emirates, we calling them as Emirates, and all of that has failed. To me, it shows how resilient the Tigray people are, and they, meaning our people in Tigray, with almost nothing, are still able to continue the fight until the invaders are out. Like, how do you guys feel about the strength and the will of the people?
You can go ahead, Tiana. I'll answer after you.
It just shows that we're really strong people. We've gone through this multiple times where we've been targeted or just mass genocides. We're just very strong people to be doing this. Like, to have the UAE, which is the country where Dubai is located. For people who just don't know that, it's where Dubai is.
Emirates is what we're calling them.
Oh yeah, Emirates. That place, and Eritrea involved. It just shows we're really strong. It's like two countries targeting an ethnic group in Ethiopia, including the Ethiopian government. It shows that we're really strong people.
And, to hear that narrative, and I've heard that same narrative of, like, oh, well, they're hiding amongst the people, they're hiding in the churches, they're hiding in the mosques. That's the exact same narrative that the occupying party of the occupying state of Israel has against, that's how they tried to justify killing innocent civilians in Palestine. They say, yeah, we're targeting hospitals and stuff like that because that's where Hamas is. When at the end of the day, we know exactly what's going on in Palestine is a war against the people, exactly like it is here in Ethiopia and here in Tigray. If this was a matter of bringing TPLF to justice, why have he's had 2 years to do this? And if it was a matter of bringing TPLF to justice, well, Abi, you served as chair to the EPRDF, so you should be the first person you arrest. If we're going to be honest here, you were a high member of the political party when TPLF was supposedly in power, and you had a lot of power and a lot of you had a lot of influence for a long time, and you did nothing. And now that you are here, again, not elected, you were chosen. You've had 2 years to make a change, and you've done nothing ultimately. And you've kind of poked the sleeping bear, and you've created such tension with the Tigray people, with TPLF specifically. And now you've used this message of law and order and having to get TPLF under control, that to annihilate the Tigray people is what you've done. And it's disheartening, and we see right through you. If this was a matter of getting TPLF out of power, he could have done that in the last 2 years. He could have brought these people to justice. He could have had his trials, and he could have had, he could have done a court hearing like anybody else would. If Donald Trump steps down right now and we wanted to, persecute him and take him to trial for all the horrible things he's done, the next president has the authority to do that. But for him to just go to war with the South because he doesn't like the fact that they voted for Trump, like, that would never happen. And if that were the case, the world would go crazy, because it's such a crazy concept. You don't go to war with the people for exercising their democratic rights. And that being said, we understand, I think, as Tegadus, I think as a general note, yes, we support TPLF, but we can also see that they've done things in the past that are worthy of being condemned. That being the case, the Tegaru people should not pay the price for what TPLF has done, whether or not they are right or wrong. The Tegaru people are innocent in this. So to bring the people into your law and order mission against a government entity is sickening, and we see right through it. It doesn't make any sense, and we appreciate Sudan and Egypt for stepping into the war. But like you said, this is our people are what's going to bring us through this, and our strength. When the war first broke out, I looked my mom and dad in the eye, and they could see the fear in my eyes. But the only thing that I saw back was pride and strength and this hope that we're going to be okay. And even in their moments of weaknesses, when we got worried about a specific family member or this, it was still this message of, we're going to be okay. Wayana got us. You know, TPLF got us. We're going to be okay. And even when we weren't, you know, about 2 weeks ago, when the lines of communication opened up in Makale, we heard back that Eritrean missionary soldiers killed my cousin back home. And it just tore us to pieces. Like I said, I was just back home 3 years ago. And when I tell you, this man was the most kind-hearted, most humble, most giving soul there ever was. And we were worried about him the most because we knew that he'd be the first to go. We're like, if they don't draft him, he's gonna go regardless, because he's that person. Even if you needed a bag of, you know, sugar, he's the first one out the door to go grab it. So we knew that, you know, we were really worried about him. And then when we did hear back, and that was the case, you know, that they did kill him while he was protecting a hospital, it completely shattered us. And, you know, it affected us. Everybody had to take off work, but thankfully our community was there to support us. And here we are. It's been about 2 weeks later, and we are rebuilding. And even as we talk to our grandparents back home and we're hurting for them, there is still a strength within my grandparents who lost their son that I have not seen anywhere else in the world. It's this sense of ajna. It's this sense of pride. It's this sense of resiliency, a sense of you can't break us, a sense of we've been through this before, and I promise you we're going to get through this again. And it's something that I've seen in everybody, despite religious opinions, despite political opinions, whether they support TPLF or not, they still know that the Tagaru people are going to persevere, because it's about what's in us, and it's about what's in it's literally our genetics. Like, you can't beat it out of us. You can't kill it out of us. You can't rape it out of us. You can't starve it out of us. We will be okay. His goal right now, his entire mission is to eradicate us, and he's taking lives in the process, and he's destroying our history in the process. But he's not going to beat us ultimately. And I did want to clarify something that I said earlier. I did mention something along the lines of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam going to Nagashi. And I just wanted to retract that because I at the time was kind of just rambling. It was his companions that obviously went on his behalf. The Prophet never stepped foot into Ethiopia. So I just wanted to clarify that for all of the viewers listening.
Well, thank you. And, you know, I think under normal circumstances, typically, you know, it's sad to hear that you lost, you know, a family member. Of course, you know, my condolences to you and your family. It's one of those things, you know, those of us, we have been able to get any information. Of course, you know, we were thinking like, oh my gosh, how many of my family members are killed? What's happening? Now I'm kind of like, I'm so scared that, you know, during the night, I'm just like, what am I going to hear? What am I going to hear? I can't go into details of what's happening, but sadly, you know, your story impacts all of us. Because Tagara death is our death. I have close family members that have served in the military in the past, and they have been picked up, and I have no idea where they're at in Addis. So for those of us who actually have had veterans who serve in the armed forces of the EPRDF, who you know, aged through, and they're in their late 70s. They were doing nothing other than just living their life as normal citizens of the country until, little do you know, even the people that have been completely away from politics for over a decade, I mean, they're getting rounded up and they're getting put in jail. I guess we don't know how those are going to be killed. You know, someone posted to you saying, so proud of you, Fidela. May Allah bless the youth and keep you strong and resilient. Tigray shall prevail. And, you know, and there's a lot of people. I think, you know, I have this bad habit of putting my hand over here when I am like sad and frustrated and can't stand the genocide on target. And earlier you say, you said it very well. If the war was to be against the Tigray government, is what I prefer to say, because we have some within the Amhara that are so delusional, saying, well, if only junta gave up, which is they felt like that's a name they came up with, that the Tigray people wouldn't be dying. No, what everybody should understand is that this was not war declared just because. This was declared simply because Abiy Ahmed has become a puppet of Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea. And Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea told him that unless you destroy Tigray infrastructure, you kill as many people, particularly young people, then the population is destroyed, and those who are going to make the survival through will be so demoralized that the will and the strength of Tagaru will be gone. And that is the only way, which his mother, many say, have told him that he would become the king, that you would become a king, and at 44, you can become the next dictator until you die, like Mugabe, if he lives into his 90. I mean, that literally is his dream, is that if I can dictate in Ethiopia for the next 40, 50 years, why not? What he miscalculated, however, is the will of the people in Tigray has really shown that 500,000 plus troops from all corners of the country, and to just add to what Tiana said earlier, it's actually Eritrea Emirates, the Ethiopian federal troops, the Amhara militia, the rest of the region, Somalia have sent troops. He had asked South Sudan for 4,000 troops, which they refused. He'd asked Kenya for troops. Kenya refused. Then he asked Kenya later on for medical supplies because he was losing so many of his soldiers. And then Kenya, they turned into sort of like, not a funny for me to laugh, but a joke, saying, well, we're another African country. We don't have the resources that you need. Why don't you ask the United States of America? Maybe America can help you. Where I'm going with this is, it is, I don't have a 100% confirmation, but the things that I have heard is that the US government, actually, one of the main reasons that is getting on the way of having the United Nations coming up with a resolution for potential sanction is that there is a conversation that the Trump administration was convinced that what Abiy Ahmed and Isaias have said, that they can send massive troops to Tigray, they can get rid of the Tigray leadership, then America, Donald Trump particularly, can invest massively in the Ethiopian infrastructure and economy. And to do that, there's a rumor that Abiy Ahmed actually received $5 billion from the United States, and over 3 billion of that was funneled to Eritrea to support the starving Eritrean military, which, if you don't have to take my word for it, by the way, when you look at the Eritrean army, sadly, like their bone is poking out through their skin, literally. They come to Tigray wearing flip-flops because he can't afford to buy them even proper uniform and shoes. And when we saw them looting,
We know why.
throughout the factories, even they were still in like factory like boots and stuff. And the textile in Adwa, I mean, what they did, the sugar factory, I mean, it's just it's heartbreaking. The fact that Eritrean troops also are using knives to butcher innocent civilians in front of their mothers, and they say that you kill everybody first in front of the mother so the mother can watch the pain and suffering. I mean, this is the kind of evilness that we were talking about. I know that is very raw, what I say, but people should realize that it should give them chills down to the core of their bones, that what's happening in Tigray, this is not about a war declared between the Ethiopian dictator and the democratically elected regional government of Tigray. This was designed by 500,000 military personnel with tanks and drones and fighter jets, supported air and ground, and the Tigray people had very few. And the unelected prime ministers, generals said, we are going to go in and get rid of them so quickly because they have nothing to stand, they have nothing to fight us with. Well, I think that obviously we know is a lie, that the strength that they thought they had, no matter how outnumbered the Tigray fighters have been, they are withstanding. They are yet to capture 5% of Tigray region. Within that 5%, which is, in Tigray, most of the communities live and enroll in very remote areas. The cities that they claim they captured is less than 5% of the Tigray population. And the smaller population, however, have been heavily targeted and massacred throughout. And moving on from city to city, it goes through villages, and anyone within those routes have also been the target of killing. Whenever there's an actual fight, and Eritreans and the Amhara militia and the federal troops take major casualties, guess what happened? They turn on civilians. They are massacring civilians because they are cowards, because they don't have the ability to fight like they should with actual fighters, even when they outnumber them. Think about it. They outnumber them to the point where what they imagine is that how could they stand more than 500,000 troops? Well, I hate to say it, but no matter what they brought in, when it comes to militarily, it's nothing but disaster. And Ethiopia today is a failed state. It's a failed country, and the whole the Horn of Africa is under crisis. So that's my view, obviously. So Friday is a big day for all of us. What are you guys doing between now and Friday? I know we talked about Twitters and whatnot. We got to get more people out to support us. One of the things I noticed is that when I text people, when I message people, because there's so many activities out there happening, and they tend to forget. So I think while we continue to remind them doing this, I think Wednesday and Thursday is going to be critical time for us to make sure that people are remembering that we really mean it on Friday, January 8th. We got to get people out. So when you guys hop on Facebook, Twitter, Messenger, there's other apps, obviously other social medias that I have not listed, but we're gonna keep trending, like Tigray genocide, stop war on Tigray, and we have, of course, slogans that we're going to be utilizing. So how ready are you guys? Tiana, I'm going to go with you first.
I'm like quite ready-ish, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. A lot of work has been done. And our protest here on Friday was organized more by the elders in our community and less by the youth, and that's kind of been what's going on for the most part. So as the youth, we've stepped up, and we're planning another protest on the 22nd that's orchestrated by us. So we haven't had a major part, at least here in Seattle, with a lot of us have, but it's definitely been spearheaded by the elders in our community. And as the youth, we are just doing everything we can to support them. I know that they are creating an advertisement, kind of like a short video kind of advertising the protest that's going to happen on Friday. So I think myself and 2 other people are going to participate in that video, just because, you know, pictures are great, but as many different visuals that we can give people to garner more attention, more awareness, the better. So maybe that's something other communities, I think we have 11 different cities now participating in the protest on Friday. So if, you know, those 11 cities also wanted to do something similar, creating a video, I think is a great way to garner more attention. And also, if you have a following on any social media database at all, you know, keep in mind you don't want to overwhelm your viewers by constantly posting. They're going to get, you know, they're just going to start swiping through it, and they're going to stop caring. I would say be more intentful with what you post versus how often you post. Make sure that the things you're posting are super, you know, valuable and they have a very clear and direct message, versus just constantly berating your followers with the same message all day. I think that'll make a big difference in terms of how much attention and how much feedback we got for our cause. And I think that's going to make a big difference in our turnout. Again, inviting other communities to our protest. If there are protests for other causes going around, if you hear there's a Black Lives Matter protest going on Wednesday, go to that protest, show support for their communities. And while you're there, talk about what's going on in our community. Network with these other communities, get their Twitters, get their Instagrams, get their phone numbers, get their handles, keep them updated and let them know when there's another event, because when you showed support for them, those communities will in turn show support for you. So, you know, we had after our vigil, I'm really bad with dates, but we had a vigil here. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I think it was Thursday last week. And after that vigil, there was a Black Lives Matter protest, and me and another member went to that protest and we networked with them. So I'm going to reach out to those communities and let them know, and hopefully they'll show the same support that I showed them. So those are just some things that other people can do. You know, we're getting there. We're a couple days out. So this is kind of like the biggest, most important time to keep posting that flyer for the protest every single day. Make sure people don't forget about it. And if you know anybody specifically that should be there, call them, text them, make sure that, you know, the leaders in your communities and all communities, if you have no leaders in Amnesty International, if you know leaders that are just part of like the Black Lives Matter group at your school, there's other groups that people have like Colores Unidos, like other like there are groups that are safe spaces for different types of minority groups. Reach out to the leaders of those groups, let them know what's going on, invite them to the protest, and just try to get as much outside support as possible. Again, our people already know what's going on. We definitely are strong and we're united, and that's great, but we need to take that and use it to bring other people in.
I like it. And Friday, when we go out protesting, of course, we have some suggestions on slogans. The slogans ideally we'd like to use is immediate cessation of hostilities, open corridors of humanitarian aid, restoration of all public services, stop the regional war on Tigray, deploy peacekeepers in Tigray, withdraw foreign troops from Tigray, allow independent investigation of crimes against Tigray, against obviously civilians in Tigray, restore the status quo in Tigray, Emirates stop killing civilians in Tigray, drones fly, children die, Emirates stop supporting destruction of Al-Najashi Mosque, which you actually been talking about it. That actually is on the list for Fridays, part of the slogan that we want to utilize for the viewers who are interested to join us. I think you said it pretty well. Always Twitter, you guys, we can follow each other. I'm always open to feedbacks on Messenger. On Facebook, you can find me, Michael Casahun. If you just look up Casahun, obviously you should be able to find me. I will be in Portland, even though I'm a couple hours away. I'm going to take a day off from work, and I'm going to be out there to support my community. I am actually a member of the BLM. So the posting that you were talking about, I involved with them, and the flyers will be posted in the Black Unity is what we call ourselves here in our community. And there are other networks that For those of you who across the country who are preparing for the protest, let's share the message. There's Tigray Network Group that has strong followers. We're going to be posting them. I actually moderate that website. So for anybody who wants to share what's going on, send me a message. Post it on there. We got good teams that will try to keep up on it. Sometimes late nights, we try to take a little nap, obviously these days. But besides that, I think social media is our tool, our resources to ensure that our messages are out there. But also, I think not to overwhelm our friends, but not also to be afraid to ask them to share. So us sharing with them alone isn't enough. We want to make sure what we share with them, we remind them to share. So if we send a message to 50 or 100 people that we have friends on Facebook, and if we kindly ask them, hey, please message our message on our behalf in support of our people, and they do that, I mean, you see how the tree just expands. So those are some of the creative ways that we can bring the awareness internationally. If we have people in Europe, Australia, Canada, South America, Mexico, Brazil, pass on the messages. Stay in touch. These days, we have technology at our fingertips. So let's make sure that when we are messaging to reach out, our messaging is properly passed on. So we're not just doing the work, but not reminding people that we're friends with on Facebook, people that we have them on other like Twitter accounts and what have you, that they help us to spread the word out, because they will have friends that we're not friends with their friends on their social media platforms, but also some other platforms that we may not know that they may know. I think that would be a really creative way that I would like to add to what you have said. We are approaching to end our discussion here. You guys are amazing what you do. I think obviously it's hard time for everybody when you have uncles and aunts and grandparents and whatnot back home that we don't know what's happening to them. When you see families sometimes waking up with tears, or going to bed with tears, unable to eat for days. It's really beyond sadness, beyond frustration, and all these anxieties that Tiana just said earlier. But what I also wanted to let you guys know is that we are so proud to see our people unite, which is also why I had you guys come on today, is because you see, it doesn't matter what we believe, it doesn't matter what faith we practice. If young people can have a discussion like this, adults, if Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki were mature adults, they would not massacre their own people. They would not starve their own people. Instead, they would sit down on a table and have hard discussions to resolve the matter on the table. With that, I also wanted the viewers to know that the sad reality is Abiy Ahmed is made sure his wife and children, which I do not wish them harm or evil, are residing here in the United States of America, so that their safety is his number one priority. They're attending churches, living their normal lives in Denver, Colorado. I mean, just imagine, now when his children grows up, I wonder how they're going to look back and look at history, what their father did, how many people he massacred, how evil their father is. What kind of father could a man be that targets an ethnic people just simply because they speak Tigrinya, just because they're resilient and they are peace loving people that they made their region peaceful when he couldn't handle the leadership of the country, that the Oromos have been massacred. I mean, the country is dispersed into ethnic-based cleansing. The Amhara who use machetes and murder our people in Tigray are now being attacked and murdered by the Beshangul, which is another region in Ethiopia. And, you know, I haven't seen anyone from Tigray celebrating for Amhara being murdered. I haven't seen anybody from Tigray open up champagne when Sudanese army entered and took away a land they claimed that was theirs in the Amhara region. See, that's the difference. That is, you know, the difference between them and us. We want the good Amharas to come out now and speak against the evil. So, to the good Amhara people, if you're out there and if you're good, if you have decent heart, come on out, speak up. In fact, you want to come on this show and show your face and speak in front of the camera and speak to Abiy Ahmed, I invite you here. For those of you saying like, oh, you shouldn't use your name, you shouldn't insult Abiy Ahmed, I will tell you, Abiy Ahmed is a killer. Abiy Ahmed is a killer. Abiy Ahmed is not a man, because a real man actually doesn't just care about his own children. He cares about all children, all young girls, all women, all men. And Abiy Ahmed is crazy and evil. I don't believe he has any brain to think for a moment. The crisis that he generated in Tigray is going to bring him down in history, that he's going to be remembered another Hitler born in Africa and created massacre in 2020, 2021. That is really the simple definition of Abiy Ahmed's evilness that should not be tolerated in the current situation. And I think for people who you know, are out there saying like, oh well, you know, he's really out there like, you know, to enforce law and order. Well, shame on you too, because I think you're just as evil as he is. So if you have a heart, again, come on up, speak up. I will give you guys an opportunity. If you have messages to the young people back at home, abroad, any encouragement, any positive. I know I have said a lot of things that's heartbreaking, but I would like us to finish the segment in a positive way. So whatever you guys want to say, Tiana, I'm going to give you a chance first, and then Fidel, you can go right after her, and then I'll do a closing statement. Thank you.
Oh, and this is a reminder to like students that, I don't know, any grade level, you can always email your teachers about this. They could do announcements. Like, it helps a lot to get the word about what's happening right now, like spread onto your teachers and your peers and students. It helps a lot more than you think. So I really do suggest that.
To the people back home especially, I just want to say, I know you guys are bombarded and you guys are overwhelmed with having to fight, you know, all four forces, honestly, with the Eritrean military, the Ethiopian military, the Amhara's militias, and the Emirates. But, you know, the TPLF has not, the Wayana especially, have not given up on you guys. We have not given up on you guys. We will make sure that we were going to win this. And now with Sudan and Egypt's support, I am very confident that, you know, hopefully this war will end soon, and we will bring an end to the killings and an end to the starvation, and everybody who has fled, who has been forced to flee their homes, will be able to return home, and we will begin rebuilding as a nation, as our own people, as our own country. And I'm very confident that it'll happen sooner rather than later. Just please, you know, don't lose faith. don't give up. I don't think you will. I know our people are strong. I know we're going to be okay. I know we're going to prevail, not as a country, but even as a people. No matter what happens, we will be okay. And we believe in you guys. And I just want you guys to keep believing in us. Nobody can silence us. We're here. We're fighting for you. Digital Wayana is on the way.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. I know we got a busy week ahead of us, but you know what? The spirit of our people, the strength of our people back home, who are doing everything they can to survive this genocide, this evil man, that is Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, who is turned his back on his own people, who is invited foreign invaders, foreign army to come in to massacre his own citizen. That is actually why I keep pointing out the Amharas who some people prefer to say the Amhara elite. I'm going to just blatantly say the Amhara. Folks, for so long, for whatever reason, you Amharas hate Tagaro. Except when you did that during the Dergi era, we didn't retaliate against you. We embrace you. We welcome you. When this is over, those who order the atrocity, we will bring them to justice. They will be brought to justice. Don't forget this. The civilians, we're not going to retaliate against you. But shame on you as civilians for not speaking up. Shame on you. So if you really want to be real, come on out. I refuse to say a word in Amharic in this show because, not that because I hate you, it's because I'm angry at you. There's a big difference. I'm angry at you because some of you who are listening in this show, who you have been my friend, have not reached out to me and say, hey, we are so sorry what's happening in Tigray, regardless of the political differences. How are your family doing? Have you heard anything? I had one of my friends argue with me saying, well, you know, I was thinking about it to call you, but I reach out and I say, look, you've been my friend. Whenever you need like rides, whenever you need some help, I've been there to help you. And like 10 days later, I call you because I'm angry at you. You know, I feel like you are just like as evil as Abiy Ahmed. And she tried to justify it with me. And I was just trying to be so respectful. But I'm just like, how disgusting could a person be when I'm like crying on the phone saying, hey, like, I don't even know what's happening to my region, my tribe, my own family. And you have the audacity here to justify what's happening. And, you know, and I'm just like, I feel now like disgusted. I actually like even spent time talking on the phone with this very evil person who was arguing with me, basically saying, well, they're out there fighting to get rid of like Wayane, like you say, like the Tigray leadership. And I'm just like, the Maikadra massacre, the innocent people's death doesn't exist because they live in a different reality. They don't live in the reality that we live, that this is real. And for the Amharas who embrace the Shabia, we call them, the Eritrean mercenaries coming and invading Tigray, I mean, you know, in a civilized society, we call that treason. When a government or any person of a country brings a aids or abates a foreign government, you get executed. You go to jail. You go through the process of justice. You face justice, which is, you know, it's literally capital punishment. So we have people on the list that should be soon on a capital punishment. Those are starting with Abiy Ahmed, Isaias Afwerki, the generals in Eritrea. By the way, some of them, I don't know if you guys saw earlier this morning, there's 4 or 5 of them. They claim some of them died of coronavirus, but a number of the Eritrean generals have actually died. Sadly, some of them we have no idea, but a couple of them, it was announced in Eritrea that they died of the coronavirus. Well, that same coronavirus, I'm hoping that soon it will catch on to the 2 dictators actually. And I'm going to say this again, for those of you who say I should not be talking like that because Abiy Ahmed is going to get me. well, come and get me. Because in passing any of my places, and I tell you, I live in Oregon. I live in Eugene, Oregon. So if you think I'm scared, you're dead wrong. With that in mind, I'm gonna say something real quick in Tigrinya. But before I say that, for those of you young Tagaru, friends of Tagaru, anyone who supports peace, love, and did not know anything about Tigray, Tigray is a state in northern Ethiopia. Tigray is a beautiful region with beautiful people of multi-ethnic, multi-religion, who lived side by side peacefully. Just as I brought in these two young ladies to join me to have this discussion tonight, one of them happens to be Christian, one of them happens to be Muslim. We can have a discussion like this peacefully. We can, live side by side without having to feel like, oh, uncomfortable, want not. But we have people that is designed to divide us. Right now, even as we speak, they're trying to divide us within the diaspora. They're trying to divide us back at home. And we say hell no to that. We say hell no to you, Abiy Ahmed, because you are a killer. And as a killer, we are going to expose you. We are going to speak the truth while you continuously lie, while you continuously brainwash the Amhara puppets who follow you. We are exposing them and we are exposing you. And when you face justice, the special chair that is going to serve the due process, obviously, you will explain to the world, but to the innocent civilian children that you massacred, you have thick blood on your hand. So those of you who say you shouldn't be talking like that, I'm American citizen. I live in America. As American, I have every right. I did not say that I'm going to kill him. I am saying that I hope the coronavirus gets him, because the real problem in Ethiopia today and Tigray is not a coronavirus. It's actually dictator Abiy Ahmed worse than coronavirus. He's the one that will need to face justice. So for the young Tagarus, keep up the good work. Keep rising. Keep standing for speaking for the injustice. When genocide is committed and is continuously being committed, speak up. Stand up. I don't care what language you speak. For the young Tagarus who have been born and raised in Addis Ababa and throughout Ethiopia, you speak Amharic, Orominya, Somali, whatever it is, Arabic, Inshallah, Salam alaikum, right? So my Arabic, I haven't used it for a long time, but to the Sudanese brothers and sisters, Inshallah, Shukran, thank you. To the Tagarus who are feeling helpless, we are hearing you. We are on your side. I say this every time at the end of my segment. We are with you. We're fighting for you, and we're standing for you and with you. We will support you 100%, because there's nothing over 100%. So we are committed as Tagaru, old and young, as one people from abroad. So stay strong. Tigray will prevail. With that said, أيهم دك عدنا دك أنستيو دك توعتيو أو عد زلهم مسدت حابرنا إزي مس إزلو مكرنا عدنا بأبي أحمد قتال هزي قتال قلعو سب كما يقرنا عوت نهزنا وقع ناي هاجر شعبية ناي أمحارة وتادر ناي أبي أحمد وتادر ناي سوماليا وتادر ناي أمرت درون زيات موصيو نانا خطف نزرنا بقانقانا خطف زمت صلاي تدمسيسو ناي تግራይ مريت رامص امبر منور يخم دي تخون خريوا ايام يريوا ملو ايام ازي با امباغنن زيو مشرفت نانا نصوعو ايهم ناتو شمو ابي احمد تلو ات ابي ناي مجمرتا شمو مشرفت احمد نانا شمنا صوعنا جاغانو أيهم نجزيو الشجرة لهم وإن حريرنا جن أو قلنهم لنا إنا أيهم عوت ناتنا أيو موت كدنتيو موت جن أبقى أرس موت نهاجر كان هزخا إلك سوا موت يبان نسو تاريخي سلازيو نفس وقف تقادلتي أميرا زلهم لكن استيان دك تواتيان تقور وزر لهم تاريخ ناياتنا حدرا تقبلكم عبيتي بصوت سالساي جزي خوينات تكايد زلهم كاب عد وسخم كم قلقلينا أصبو حجر أصبو عالم نمنوارنا أخم قليلين حزبنا حجرنا نجن كي يورر سلكم تكايد وزلهم عود تكايد وزلهم قرسي أو قلناهم لنا أنا أيهم إذا نجرزيو نجزيو صدمات نجزيو مرير نجزيو حماق مسيري سمعنا له وإن حريرنا جن حل فيه سعلفه أما على تأكلنا كلنا صبوا كويلا بصبوا علتا كنحلف وينا إذا نجرزيو حرينا نحنا علنا أنا وقولناهم تجراي كتشنفيا عوت ناتنا أيو ويانا كل جزء إذا شنف تشنف أي فلتن أي ينبرك خن سالات ينبرك خنبر أي ينبرك خنيو رح نحضره. Good night. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Friday we'll be in touch. We'll try to air Friday as many of the program as we can through Cyber Power of Tigray. So stay tuned Friday. I'll do my best to catch up with some of you guys. I expect Ephraim is going to be in Seattle. I'm going to be in Portland. I'm trying to connect with some of my friends in Denver, Colorado. If you guys know in DC, some areas that they can help us to do some live streaming. Let's stay in touch. Love you all. Have a good night. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll be in touch. Ciao.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.